adults.
Yeah. Especially I think in the private practice setting, because when they're reaching out to you at that level of care, they're pretty balanced. Obviously there are things that they're reaching out to sort out, but they're ready to do the work.
Right.
The adolescents are also ready to do the work. They don't necessarily fully understand why, I think is sometimes the way I've experienced working with teenagers, but it's interesting.
It is. And well, some of them are ready to do the work and other ones aren't, but that's okay. Just try to meet them where they're at. Yeah.
What do you typically find yourself doing with the teenagers? Is it traditional talk therapy a lot of times, or are you still doing kind of some of the like young developmental type stuff with them?
Oh yeah, we're still doing talk therapy, but I usually just am trying to make it interactive, and we'll just sit on the floor and play games while we talk or play cards, something like that. Something to kind of distract them from just the one-on-one looking at me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tell my friends that come over, because I do a board game night once a month with a group of friends, and I have a massive Uno collection, like all the different types. This is a fun fact about me. And they'll always ask, what got you into it? And it was therapy. I was working with teenagers in a high school classroom, and the best way that they would open up is we would sit and play Uno. And it just I started buying all these different versions, and then it became like a little hobby of mine. But
well, that's good to know, because I play a lot of Uno.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize there were all these different versions to it.
Yeah, there's any show or movie you can imagine. There's all kinds of types of Unos. Yeah.
Okay. Check
or from my childhood, Pokemon was huge. Yeah. So I tried to collect all the Pokemon version of Unos. But before we go too deep into how much of a nerd I am, I'm sure a lot of the parents that listen to the show would love to hear your insights. And for those listening, Jenny has been in the field for over 20 years. So the insights we're going to get tonight are going to be, I think, just nuggets of wisdom, and just from reading, your bio and your information on your Psychology Today and your website, it's clear to me as a clinician is why I wanted to have you on, is hear someone who knows what she's talking about. And I'm curious if you could put some words to, or just whatever you'd like to share about the phases that maybe adolescents are in that that therapy can be helpful for. Well, I know that's generic.
Yeah. I think of adolescence as kind of segments. And so we have the early adolescent phase where it's really kind of 11, 12, through, 14, 15 or so. And they're really just going through explosive brain development.
Yeah.
Their sexual maturation comes on board, and they're really starting to want to connect more socially and start to kind of pull away a little bit from their parents, which can be a hard transition. They're not like your cuddly little kid, like your little kid anymore.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they want to be in their room and kind of left alone and just want to be with their friends all the time. But that's completely normal. And that's a process that people have to go through to be able to become independent adults.
Yeah.
And then, then we have kind of this middle stage of adolescence, 16, 17, 18, where they're really starting to form a bit more of their identity. Developing more independent skills, hopefully, kind of getting out of high school and transitioning to, a trade school or employment or college, something like that. And then late adolescence goes all the way into your 20s. So it's lots of phases to the whole sort of term of adolescence.
Yeah, I think it's important that you highlight that last part, the latter part of it branches into those early 20s. A lot of people, I think, they're 18, they're an adult now.
Right.
And that in a lot of ways is true. And I think a lot of teenagers can kind of start showing some of that autonomy even earlier than that. But hearing you piece it together, number one, as I'm listening, it's it's good to talk to another clinician and see that these things are still fresh in my mind and I'm on the right track when I'm talking with the parents that I work with. But if we just kind of take it just piece by piece of what you highlighted, that 12 to 14 kind of phase, it's do you find this is just my experience, I'm curious if you feel this way, they're the first developmental tasks typically of what's right and what's wrong, and it can get real concrete. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are probably going through some of that. And first of all, again, if there's a different way you would state that, or if you don't agree with that, I would love to hear, because I'm I just want to learn and listen too. So would you state that any other way or add anything to like what's going on during that 12 to 14?
That they're really kind of getting on board with like morals and right and wrong. No, I would definitely agree with that. There's a lot of development around there. And I think that's why it's important to also kind of be aware of what they're exposed to, because that plays an influence into that development.
Yeah.